It's not often I feel like this, but Charlotte both surprises me and makes me suspect that something is off. So in this video, I am going to give a brutally honest showcase of what C0 Charlotte is capable of, reveal some unique things about her, activate all of her constellations, and show you some interesting teams you can build with her. In a nutshell, Charlotte specializes in applying cryo to enemies and healing your team. That's pretty much it. But there are a few surprising things about her, so let me start by first showcasing her potential. Now my Charlotte is equipped with the Oathsworn Eye and Noblesse artifact set that has attack Sands and Goblet, as well as a healing bonus circlet, while her talents are 6, 9, 9 as you can see here, and for now, she is Constellation 0, but I'll also showcase her potential all the way to C6. And if you're wondering, Charlotte's builds are pretty flexible. She's an attack scaling unit, so both her healing and damage depend on this stat, and you could go for something like Favonius Codex, or even Prototype Amber in Thrilling Tales for extra support. For more info on how to build her, watch till the end of the video. But starting off with her normal attacks, she has these really cool animations of her taking pictures of the enemy, and the damage ranges from 1300 to 1900, which obviously is laughably bad, and trust me, you'll get to witness even worse numbers than this. Now her charge attack deals about 3000 damage, and it also deals small amount of Numa line damage as well. But I don't know if it's just the Drake who's teasing me here, because sometimes these charge attacks have terrible aiming, and I end up attacking nothing with her, which is pretty weird. Now her skill works in a kinda similar way to Nahida's. If you tap it, enemies near her get tagged with this snappy silhouette mark, and while the initial damage is roughly 2.5 thousand, marked enemies also receive 1439 damage every 1.5 seconds, for a total of 4 times, because this tap version mark only lasts 6 seconds. But if you hold down the skill, it will start charging up this photo frame, and once the frame appears, anyone inside it can become tagged and receive around 5100 damage, and also get marked with focused impression, which lasts for 12 seconds, and like the tap version, every 1.5 seconds it will deal 1490 damage up to 8 times. Now, here's where some of my frustrations arise. First of all, hold version generates 4 to 5 particles, while the tap version creates only 3, and Charlotte needs energy badly, due to her burst being the only source of healing, and it costs 80. So, what's the problem? Well, if you go to Abyss, or really go up against any annoying enemies, Charlotte has no resistance to interruption when she's charging up this hold version, and she can easily get knocked away. On the flip side, at least she still unleashes the tap version of the skill if this happens. The other thing is that unlike with Nahida, where you can just do a 360 spin with her and tag the enemies, this hold version requires you to have enemies in the literal frame here to damage them and apply the mark. I know it makes sense since she's taking a photo, but I don't know. A lot of the times enemies will be scattered around, and you will need to pick who you want to tag with the mark. Still, you can select up to 5 enemies with both tap and hold version, and you can see the total damage Charlotte could potentially deal if the stars align. Now, moving over to her burst, when she casts it, it will initially deal about 3500 damage or so, and then proceed to damage enemies inside for 296 damage if you score a critical hit. I know, amazing. On the other hand, when she casts the burst, she also heals the team once with a really big heal. With this healer build, she healed for almost 20k, which is impressive, and then active characters who stay in the field get healed up to 8 times for 716 HP, or a total of 5728 health, which in all honesty is not that much, but not bad either. And to sum it up, if you unleash both her skill and burst, she would deal almost 23,000 damage to a single target, or at best case scenario, 91,000 damage against 5 targets. Now, you might be saying, "Gotcha gamer, why are you always showcasing damage potential of healers?" Well, why not? I know she's equipped with the healing gear, so it's not a fair assessment. But I also know people have been talking about her DPS potential, so I went ahead and did some of that as well. Now, she's equipped with a 5-star weapon, DPS artifacts, and you can see that in about 13 seconds, she manages to dish out a whopping 230,000 damage. I hope you got the irony here, because she is on field, triggers melt, is boosted by Kazuha, and even utilizes her crowd damage passive, and then spends 13 seconds to do this? Yeah, that's healer damage alright. What's even funnier is that the majority of this damage comes from the melted charge attacks. Sure, she could have a better output if there were 5 enemies, but come on. I even went ahead and utilized the beautiful Shenhe and Yunjin combo to boost her normal attacks for some fun damage. I mean, Child got beat up, so that's always nice, but in no way can Charlotte be considered a serious damage dealer, despite the fact I love her normal attacks so much. Well, scratch that. She's not a serious damage dealer for Abyss, but she is pretty okay for world exploration. Now, when it comes to her cryo application, the burst causes 3 reactions, which is fine and dandy, while when the enemies are tagged by her marks, every other instance of damage creates a reaction, which I would say it gets the job done in teams like Freeze, especially if it's the hold version of the skill applying cryo, since it can linger for 12 seconds. Oh, and if you're wondering, her first passive can reduce the cooldown of her skill because, oh my gosh, is it long. So every 12 seconds, if an enemy is defeated while they have one of the marks, the skill's cooldown gets reduced by 2 seconds, which can happen up to 4 times. And then the second passive is actually pretty cool. Non-Fontaine members in her team increase her cryo damage by up to 15%, while Fontaine buddies increase her healing bonus by up to 15%. But yeah, that's pretty much her personal potential. Obviously not a damage dealer, but it is funny to see what she's capable of, while her healing is actually good, and so is her cryo application, provided that you are able to use her hold version of the skill successfully. I'm not a huge fan of the small circle of the burst, but it only lasts 4 seconds, so it's kinda fine. Anyway, I think it's time we quickly talk about her Constellations. So her first constellation is a pretty good upgrade because when a character gets healed with the burst, they receive additional healing every 2 seconds and it lasts 6 seconds. And I believe this also applies for the first time when everyone gets healed, so it's like a lingering healing for the whole party. Honestly, this is the most relevant constellation if you plan to use Charlotte with Farina, since that means more fanfare points. Now, C2 will grant Charlotte up to 30% attack boost for 12 seconds, depending if she can tag 1, 2, or 3 enemies with her skill. This means better healing and kinda better damage, which is always a welcome addition. C3 and C5 are your regular skill and burst improvements, nothing unusual, while C4, in my opinion, is probably her best constellation if you care about the Abyss. Because now, if the burst hits the enemies who are tagged, Charlotte can gain up to 10 energy, which means her ER requirements go down by like 10 to 20%, which is super nice. Finally, C6 starts triggering AoE coordinated attacks that also heal characters, even when she is off-field, but you need to hit enemies with normal attacks who are marked by her skill. I don't think it's a groundbreaking C6 compared to other 4 stars, but additional AoE cryo application and healing is a great way to finalize her kit. Overall, I would say if you're playing Farina and want to use Charlotte, C1 is pretty good, while C4 helps her with energy issues. But I wouldn't pull that many copies, and maybe snag more copies on future reruns. But that's pretty much it, so let's talk about her teams. Now, when it comes to team comps that can utilize Charlotte, it really boils down to a question, do you need a healer? I know for a fact that in Farina comps, Charlotte works pretty well since her one-time AoE heal is pretty huge, and even the smaller heals for active characters still contribute towards fanfare points. Although, keep in mind, it's very likely Charlotte will be the only cryo character, and because her burst costs 80, you might need around 200 or 240 ER just to make sure she can use that burst consistently. Although, you could run her in freeze comps with Farina, or for this matter, just freeze comps, and then her ER requirements go down, but I would still say her best weapons are those that can provide energy recharge in some way, or can restore energy like Prototype Amber. Now, I know I said Charlotte isn't a great damage dealer, but as a coping mechanism, you can definitely use her in Hyperfridge teams as an on-field driver. I know I will, and it's actually a pretty fun and viable comp to clear Bish chambers. Sure, her damage won't be big, but cryo application coming from her will freeze the enemies often, and that means you can specialize a little in more damage. Like, for example, she could go for a critical circlet to deal better crit damage, and in this team you could even go for a lower energy recharge, like 160 to 190, since she will stay on field for a decent amount of time. Heck, you could even slap on her instructor set to boost Hyperbloom damage for teammates. But if your hate runs strong when it comes to obtaining energy recharge, you can also use her in mono cryo comps as a healer, where she'll get plenty of cryo particles. And of course, if any of your hyper carry teams can utilize cryo application, like for example Hu Tao's Vape Melt team, you can equip Charlotte with Thrilling Tales to give Hu Tao or any other carry that big attack boost. In fact, you could even go for Tenacity of Millilith as extra attack boost for teammates, and this works for many other teams as well, since Charlotte's skill applies damage consistently, and it triggers the artifact's Forced bonus really easily. As a final note, if you really want to specialize in sub DPS Charlotte, which means dealing better damage with the skill, then Golden Troop is definitely worth going for. Overall, I would say Charlotte is a pretty decent 4-star character, especially compared to previous 4 stars. And I imagine those who pulled for Farina will be able to use Charlotte with pretty good success. And I mean, even Hyperfridge and Freeze comps can work with her just fine. Now, to me personally, the biggest problem with her is that without a shielder, it's gonna be annoying to stand there and try to land that whole version of the skill on enemies. Not to mention the fact you do need tons of energy recharge, even if those requirements can be lowered with various teams or if someone is using Favonia's weapons. But yeah, I think right now she's fine, nothing crazy about her. She functions as a healer pretty well, and if you still need one of those, then I think it's not a bad idea to build her. Just don't go expecting she's gonna deal good damage, because all she really does is heal and apply cryo, while the damage potential is like a nice little bonus that can be pretty good if you're going up against multiple enemies. Anyway, I hope you found this video entertaining. I'd appreciate if you press the like button and subscribe to my channel. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.